Welcome to an RPG in a Box Basics video tutorial. In this video, we're going to talk about the navigation types that you would find in grid movement. So if you're making a grid movement project, which is the default type of movement in RPG in a Box, unless you specify free movement, if you're going to use grid movement, you're going to be using these lines here that we can currently see in the map editor. So I want to talk about these lines and how they work so that you can better understand the process of navigation in grid mode. So we have the navigation tool on the in the map editor in the tools panel. It's this one here. You can toggle it by pressing F3. So if your F2 will be the edit mode, F1 will be place mode, and anytime you want to use the navigation tool, press F3, and it will have this sort of green crosshair type icon next to the cursor. That's how you know you're in navigation edit mode, okay? And there are 4 types of navigation that you can place: walk and interact, walk only, interact only, and pending. You can see those currently listed in the top left of the map editor. You can see it says navigation types: green, walk and interact; yellow, walk only; orange, interact only; purple or pink, pending. Okay? Now, every time you press N on the keyboard, it will cycle down that list. So if I press N once, notice this white square that's around the green box currently. If I press N, it jumps down to the yellow box. Press N again, it jumps down to the yellow box, orange box. Press N again, it jumps down to the pink, purple box. Press it one more time, it goes back to the top. So every time you press N, it's just going to cycle through those different modes, okay? Another way is you can just click directly on the one you want. So click on orange and it will select the orange navigation mode, okay? Click the green one and we go back to green, okay? So what are the differences between the 4? So green, walk and interact, should be pretty self-explanatory. It means that you can walk along this line, but you can also interact with something on this line. So, for example, I don't have one at the moment, so let me just quickly go to the asset library and quickly import, let's say, a chest. And let's say I was to put that chest just there, okay? And we'll just quickly put the navigation lines back, okay? We'll talk about placing them and things in a moment, but just talk about the modes first, okay? So here I have a treasure chest, okay? Now, if I haven't at the moment, but if I was to set this treasure chest up so that it was an interactable object, that you could, open it, then if I was to stand here on this tile just here, I could not only walk forwards and stand on the tile where that chest is, but I can also interact with the chest that's on the tile in front of this one, okay? So this green line means I can both walk in this direction, but I can also interact with something that's in that direction, okay? However, if I was to switch to walk only and draw over the top, notice now how the line is yellow instead of green. What that now means is I can no longer interact with this chest from this tile. I can still interact with it from this tile and this one, but this one specifically is now a walk only line. So the only thing I can do if I click on the chest from this tile is I'm going to walk and stand on that tile. I'm not going to interact with it because this is a walk only line, okay? If we switch this to interact only and change this to orange, now it means I'm not going to walk in this direction. I can only interact in this direction. So this is good for things like, for example, a closed door, where while it's closed, you can't walk through it, but you can open it. And then the opening of the door will then switch it to either a walk only, if you can't close it afterwards, or a walk and interact so you can walk through but also close it if you want to do so. Okay, so that's what interact only does. It means that you can't walk. It's like the opposite of walk only, because walk only you can only walk but you can't use anything. Interact is you can only use, you can't walk. Okay, so from this tile I can't walk up but I can open the chest, but from this tile I can either open the chest or walk forward, or I could interact the chest or walk forward, and from here I can interact with the chest or walk forwards. But this one, I can only interact with the chest if I click on the chest while I'm standing on this tile, okay? The other thing to note about walk and interact is sometimes you will do both, and you may not want that either. So for example, when you're standing on this tile and you want to open the chest, you may not want to actually walk into the chest while you're also opening it. So that's why an interact only line is good, because it means you won't move when you interact with this chest, you will just interact with it. So if we were to interact with the chest currently from this tile, there's a high chance that not only will we open the chest, but we'll also walk and stand in the middle of it. So what you typically would do is you'd surround your interactable objects with orange lines, okay? So there's now no way for the player to move onto this tile from either here, 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 or here. But no matter which one they stand on, they can always open this chest, okay? However, you might want it so that it's not really realistic for the player to be able to open the chest from the back, because they can't see the padlock from the back, or from the side, because, you know, again, they're opening it from the hinges, they're not opening it from the front. So what I would typically do in this scenario is I would not have any navigation from those directions. So if you don't have any lines, then the player can't move there at all. Now you can either delete the lines, or you can use this fourth one, which is pending. So if that's selected, we can draw these pink, purpley coloured lines instead. What these will do is they will basically not do either. You can't either interact or walk. It's the equivalent of not having any navigation, because the player can, if the player is standing on this tile, they can't walk towards this chest from this tile, and they also can't interact with the chest from that tile. They can't do anything. They just stand there. They can either go this way, or they can go that way or that way, but they can't do anything this direction, okay? Whereas this one, they can at least interact in that direction, or walk in that direction, or that direction, or that direction. Does that make sense? So why would you use pending over none? So what's the difference, for example, between having these purple lines or just simply not having any lines at all? Like that, for example. So pending is useful for scripting. There might be situations where you don't want navigation at some point in your game, but then you later do want to be able to walk or interact in that direction. Let's say, for example, give you a practical example. Let's say you had, let's go to the asset library and see if we can find something. Yes, let's have something like this, okay? Import. So we've got a set of boulders or something, okay? So we'll click and place this down. Let's say there, okay? Now, by default, it's deleted the navigation. Let's get rid of this arch just so it's out of the way. By default, it's deleted all the navigation around it, okay? Now, if that's a permanent feature of your map, like you can't ever get rid of that, then that's probably fine. But let's say at some point in your game, that's a blockage that gets cleared. Well, what you can do is you can actually draw in pending lines instead, okay? And what this will do is this will mean that currently you can't go this way because the lines are purple, pinky purple colour, right? They're pending lines. But what you can then do is when you then tell this object to disappear, you can replace the navigation around this object, and it will change all the pending lines to, for example, walk and interact. So because the navigation exists, but it's just in a current state where you can't move, it's easier to change later down the line. Whereas if you didn't have any navigation, if you left it without any, it's a lot harder in game to script it, because then you've got to start adding the navigation back. And that's a much more complicated process to do without navigation than it is to use the pending navigation, because the pending navigation means that there is navigation there in order to change, but it's just currently in a state where the player and the NPCs don't use them. Okay, that's why it's called pending. It's waiting for something to be, it's waiting to be one of these free, and it's waiting for you to specify when that happens. But if it never happens, if this is a permanent rock formation that the player will never be able to, player or NPCs will never be able to move around, then yeah, you can just delete the navigation around it, you know. So hopefully that's suitably covered the 4 navigation types. Let's quickly talk about how to place and delete navigation. So in the map editor, this is the tool you'll use to draw navigation and delete navigation. It's the connect tool, or the F3 key. And again, pressing N will cycle the different types, or clicking on them will pick the one you want to use. So if I click a yellow line, for example, I can now paint in yellow. And to draw, you just click the left mouse button down. You would click on, for example, one of these pulsating white cubes that are currently in front of my cursor. Click the left mouse button down and hold. And now wherever I move the mouse, it's going to draw yellow lines along that grid. Okay. If I want to put them back to green, I click the green and draw over the top. So this is not combining them, this is overwriting them. So now they've gone back to being green, okay? You can't have multiple types of navigation on the same time. To delete navigation, you've got 2 choices. You can either right-click on one of these green pulsating white squares and then drag the mouse back like that. Or you can just hover the mouse over one of the pulsating squares and press the delete key. Now the difference is, you'll notice when I press the delete key, it deletes more lines than the right mouse button does. So if I undo that, the right mouse button just deletes the lines as I go along, like this. So you see, as I draw a line, I'm deleting just the lines that followed my mouse. Yeah. But if I undo that and I press the delete key, you can see I'm deleting almost this cross. Yeah, because it's basically deleting all the navigation that links up to this point. So we're actually deleting the point, and therefore all of the lines that connect to that point get deleted. Same with here. It's going to delete this T shape because we're going to delete this point, and therefore all the lines that lead to this point are going to be deleted when I press the delete key. Yeah. Whereas the right mouse button and dragging the mouse will just follow the line where you drag your mouse. Yep. So it's a finer deletion, but it's not a... If you just want to delete the navigation entirely, then you can just click the delete key over these points. Yep. So those are the 2 ways of deleting navigation. And you would just place navigation by clicking and dragging with the mouse key. Okay. It's also important to note as well that in the in the tile placement settings, you have this button here, which is this button here, which is the auto connect navigation, which is by default is the U key. So if I press U, I can toggle that on and off. If it's on, whenever you place tiles, it will automatically draw the navigation. See how I drag these out and the lines get added? Okay. Whereas if I have that off and I drag the tiles, it doesn't create the navigation as well. So that's useful for if you want to put some floor down first and then deal with the navigation later. There might be different reasons why you might want to do that. You might want to just deal with the navigation later because you don't want it to auto put lines everywhere. Another reason is that it's quicker for the map editor to process a lot of tiles at once if they don't have navigation on, because navigation just adds extra processing power to the processing that has to occur when you start placing and building out your map. So for example, if I switch to tile mode and I have this off and I zoom out a bit and I select the grass and I drag a big box, notice how there's no slowdown at all. Perhaps a tiny bit, but you know, in essence, I was able to draw that fairly easily. If I undo and I turn this on and I drag out a box, now my machine is starting to chug and it's actually taking a while to even get to the point where my mouse cursor is. Because my mouse cursor is currently, as you can see it on the screen, but the map tiles are not there yet. And there you go, it's finally reached that point. And that's because it's not only drawing the tiles, but it's also trying to calculate the navigation at the same time. So if you're going to be placing a lot of tiles at once, definitely turn this off before you do so. And then you'll have to draw your navigation in manually. So just to show that again, we'll turn this off and then we'll drag out some tiles, nice and smooth, no lag at all. But then what you'll have to do is go in afterwards. So let's just quickly fly over here and then press the F3 key, and then you can start drawing your, navigation in. Yes, it's time consuming, but it's just part of the process of, if you're making a large map at once and it's chugging because of the navigation, you'll probably have to work in such a way where you build out the map first and then go in afterwards and do the navigation after the fact, okay? The more tiles that have navigation, the more processing power your map is going to take. So if there's parts of your map where the player is just never going to go, and there's no NPCs and no NPCs can go there either. So let's say, for example, we put a wall around this section of the map. Like this, there's no point having any lines in this section because these walls should essentially block off the player and any NPCs from reaching this section. So have sections like this without navigation. That will just reduce the load on your game at runtime, okay? Especially for lower end machines, for people who are going to be playing your game on a lower end machine, the amount of lines in your map is going to make a significant dent in the performance, okay? So the amount of tiles that you can limit the navigation to, the better. So typically what you'll want to do is, obviously you want to have parts of your map that are sort of explorable off the beaten path, but try and keep as much of your map as focused as you can on the main path, so that your maps are super duper efficient, at least for grid mode anyway. Free movement, you can move off the map, and therefore you don't even need navigation unless you've got, obviously the NPCs will need to use it. Now, while we're on the topic of navigation, we need to talk about an issue that can very easily arise for some people. So it's good to talk about it now in this topic so that you can be made aware of it very early on, why it happens and how to deal with it, okay? So I have a room here which I've pre-filled with navigation. As you can see, all the grid lines are down. But if I turn off the green lines visibility for a moment, you can see that the whole room has been perimetered with red tiles with yellow exclamation marks. That's because those tiles are not going to work properly, okay? Now, if we turn the navigation back on, you can see that you can't immediately see why that's the case, because it looks like it's all connected up properly. Let's go into game and actually see the issue. So here we are in game. Now, just to show this off a bit clearer, I'm going to use the console to turn on the navigation. And if we click anywhere on the grey dungeon floor tiles, you can see that I can move around perfectly. So for example, if I'm here and I want to go down here, I can. If I want to go up here, I can. If I want to go over here, I can. Everything's working fine, okay? Now let's step on one of these red tiles. So far, everything's fine. Now let's go down to this one. Why did you take a U shape? Do that again? No. I want you to go straight up. Let's try using the keyboard. No. I can't go straight up. I can't go straight down. In order to go, I have to click, but also when I move in a U shape. What is going on here? And if we rotate the camera around, let's try and go into the corner. I can't even go into the corner at all. And to get here, I've got to come out and round. Still can't get to the corner. Got to come out and round. If I want to go into here and then go over here, I've got to come out, go round. Come out, go around. I can't just go like I can on the grey tile where I can literally just click here and go straight down. straight path. So all of these tiles with red tiles with yellow exclamation marks have got issues with them where it looks like they should all link up, but they're not. They're not linking up properly. Why is that happening, and how do you avoid it happening in the future? So this is a good video to do because a lot of people do encounter this, so it's good to bring it up. So let's get back to the editor. So the issue is where your mouse cursor is aiming. When you draw these lines, you have to be very, very, very careful. Now, I'll show you in a minute 3 ways that you can avoid this issue, and you can pick the one that works best for you. But for now, let's just quickly talk about the fact that this issue does exist. Wherever you aim your cursor, when you draw these lines, will affect where they go. So if you have a look, if I switch to navigation mode, if I hover my cursor over the white dots, you can see that they pulsate. Now, it's important to distinguish one pulsating from another. If you look at this white cube, you can see that the whole thing is shrinking and expanding, shrinking and expanding. But if I move over to the side here and I hover over, let's say, this corner tile, see how it's not expanding, it's just glowing, it's just emitting like a light, whereas these ones are actually changing shape. Okay, now what happens if we select a working tile and delete it? It deletes the navigation. So if I delete this one, it also deletes the lines. If I delete this one, it also deletes the lines. What happens if I delete this tile? The line stays. This is starting to show you where the issue is coming from, or at least not why the issue is, but you can see where it's sort of messing up. Let's try deleting this tile. The lines are staying, the lines are staying, the lines are staying, the lines are staying. And that's part of the problem, is because when you delete a tile, it should be taking the navigation with it. Now, if we re-hover over these connecting dots, now that we've deleted the floor tiles, you can see that they're not pulsating, whereas if we hover over these, they are. Yeah. But if we now move the mouse over the wall, it starts to pulsate. So what happens if we select the wall and delete it? Hello. So what's actually happened is these lines have been drawn on the wall rather than the floor. And that's part of the problem. So you have to be very careful where you aim a mouse when you draw these navigation lines. So let's put the wall back for a minute. Wrong one. Put the tile back. When you connect them up, you need to make sure that your mouse cursor is not here. Because if I start drawing from here, notice how the pulsating dot has changed. See how if I hover here, it's growing and shrinking. If I hover over here, it's not. It's doing the faint glow. So if I click and hold from here and start dragging, it's drawing it on the wall, right? So my mouse is over the wall, so as I drag these lines, that's where it's putting them. So if we select the floor tile and delete it, those lines are staying because they're not actually on the floor, they're on the wall. Okay, this line got deleted just a second ago, as will this line, this one going this way, because that was connected to that tile. But these ones going around, the ones I drew here, they're all actually on the wall. And when you have them overlapping, the ones going in this direction, that's what causes the problem. Because you can go in this way, but you can't go this way. And therefore, that's why the player goes in a shape like that, because that's how they can then get from here to here. They can't go directly. They have to go around and around like that. So there's 3 ways to avoid this problem from happening. First thing we need to do though is we need to fix it. So to fix it, you need to basically delete all of the the tiles that don't work. So we'll just go around and we'll delete the walls again. Oops. Okay, and then let's fill in the gaps as well. And let's start to change these tiles as well, because now we'll make them work. Okay. So, 2 ways to do this. The 3 ways, sorry, to do this. Let's just delete the lines going across. So you're in this situation, okay? And then you want to put your walls in. Okay, so we've put the walls back. So, method number 1 to avoid this issue is to use the top-down camera, because that will give you a more accurate floor plan. Right, it's harder to draw on the walls now because we're looking at them top down. So now when you use the navigation tool, you can clearly see where the center of the floor is, so you can click and drag along there. When you are drawing these, just be careful which side of the tile you're dragging from with your cursor. So what I would typically do is, if I'm going along this way, for example, keep the cursor towards the inside of the room like this, rather than here, just in case it gets connected to the wall. Same with when we're going down here. Rather than being on this side, I want to be on this side. So I'll deliberately keep the cursor on the inside of that tile. Okay. Same with as we come down here. Etc. Okay. And then just connect them up that way. Okay. It's not foolproof. You could still have issues, but as long as you're careful and doing it with the top down, it's harder to make a mistake. Okay, so that's one way. The other way is to just put the lines back for a minute. The other way is to do the floor first. So let's just delete the walls again. Didn't mean to do that. My mouse is being weird at the minute. Right, let's put those back in. Whoops, that doesn't matter. Right, and then you do all the navigation first. So we'll connect all of these up without any walls in place at all. That way it doesn't matter where we move the mouse because there are no walls to accidentally put the nav onto. And then when your navigation is in place, when you go to put the walls down, let's start with the corner one, turn this off, auto connect navigation, okay? And then now what that will do is that won't delete the existing navigation because it's not going to affect it. We've turned it off. So now if we click, 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 and click, and then we can do the same with our wall. Make sure that's off. That one didn't get, the corner one didn't get placed for whatever reason, but you can see, you get the idea. Yeah, you just drag these around with this off. And it won't delete the lines, so therefore you won't have to put them back, and then you won't run into the mistake of putting them on the wall. But now because we drew the lines before the walls existed, the lines therefore aren't touching any of the walls. So that's one way you could do that. Another thing you could do is once you've done the walls, let's say you're in a position where you've already done the walls, so you can't do that, or you'd rather not do that. Then another thing that you can do is just delete these for a minute. So let's pretend you're in this situation where you want to connect to the walls, but you want to be careful, right? So what you do is you can click with the edit tool, you can click this tile and then shift click this tile and right click and connect them this way. Walk and interact, and then do the same here. And then do the same here. But it's going to be time consuming, but it will be accurate. It will definitely only do the tiles you're clicking on, okay? But you will have to do this, but then you'll also have to then connect these up, because we can't go this way. If you want to, you're going to have to do these as well, okay? And unfortunately, you can only do 2 tiles at a time. So it's time consuming, but accurate. The last thing that you could do, which is my favorite way, is if we delete the navigation for a minute, is to actually just select the tile, the walls in one go. Like so, add them to a group. Click off, go to the map properties, find the group and hide it. And then you can draw your navigation in. And you can be as unneat as you want because the walls aren't actually there, even though they are. If we turn the visibility of them off, which also affects navigation's ability to be drawn on them, i.e. they won't. So then when you're happy with the result, just quickly finish these off. Then you can turn the group back on and then delete the group. And there you go. So let's now save this and just see that it works properly. Okay, so here we are walking around normally. Let's bring the navigation lines back. So we can walk around normally, we can take any route we want. Now let's go to this tile. Try going down. We can. Can we get into the corner? Yes, we can. Let's go up. Can we get into the corner? Yes, we can. Can we use the keyboard? Yep. So we have got every tile working now. So that's just something really important to be aware of when using navigation, is where you are drawing those lines. And a clue are these white dots here. If they expand, then that means that's where the dot is. If it's just emitting a light from where you're aiming the mouse, that means it's not where the dot is. You're not yet hovering over the tile that actually has that navigation. Does that make sense? And if you delete the if you delete the tile, it should delete the navigation. So if it doesn't, then that means that tile did not have the navigation on it. Okay? So look out for those things, and also use the methods I suggested to avoid the issue entirely anyway. So just those sort of things to bear in mind. But that's the navigation grid.